welcome. My name is Boxiang Dong. I work as a professor at Montclair State University in the computer science department. So today, it's my pleasure to talk about a little bit about detecting cyber attacks with deep learning. And so, if you watch news every day, probably you have already heard enough about this. So for example, on the top left, we have the Equifax data breach, which leaks 45 million accounts, which includes the names, the birth date, our social security number, etc., etc. And on the right-hand side, it is the Home Depot. So the most important or the most famous data leakage in history is this one, the Yahoo one, so which leaks around 500 million accounts information. So it's almost every account in Yahoo has been hacked by the attackers. So the next question is, okay, this is not finished yet. We keep saying this news every day. So these are the recent attacks that have been reported in the last 2 years. So every time after I read this news, I was like, really? Another one, and another one, and another one. Who else has not been attacked, right? So, okay. And sometimes my family members, especially my wife and my mother, whenever they saw this news, they came to me, okay, so as you are a researcher in cybersecurity, could you please do something better than the current one to make us safer, to protect our privacy? We don't want our data to be leaked anymore. So, and they said, okay, they are done with this. They have enough of it. So most of the time, I say, okay, I don't know how to respond to their questions. I just, okay, I feel it's hard to explain the difficulty behind it. Until recently, okay, I think maybe I found a better explanation. Currently, there are so many privacy leakage because detecting cyber attacks is so hard. So all of us watch movies. So in most movies, whenever it's related to hacking behaviors, or cybersecurity behaviors, we see some cool guy and sit in the dark in front of a couple of monitors or screens and think a couple of minutes. Done. So he break it or he protect it. So anyway, it seems that he finished the cybersecurity task, either attack or protection, in a couple of minutes. So easy. However, that is only in movie. In practice, in reality, these are our situation. So on the left-hand side, I show the number of internet connections within a very small local area network. So what we can say is that, say, every minute, there are about around, on average, there are around 200 internet connections within this very small network or even within a computer, okay? And so here, I just use different colors to show different types of connections. There are some benign behaviors which are displayed in the blue color, while there are some other attacks, which includes the DDoS attack, which is very famous for denial of service attack, and then the botnet attacks, and etc., etc. So what we can say is that, so first, the number of internet connections is pretty large, and second, these attacks just happen in between benign behaviors at the same time. And some of them has a very large population, while the rest of them are just, say, rarely happen. So, and on the right-hand side, I show I use dimension reduction to project all these internet connections into a 2D dimension. So here, the black dots represent the normal behaviors, while the colorful ones represent the attacks. So what we can say is that they pretty much overlap with each other. So in other words, the attacks look like the benign behaviors very much. So it's very hard for us to distinguish attacks from the normal internet connections. So next, let's say how many words can us read in every minute. So this is the answer I found from linguist department, around 250. So this is the number of words that each person can read within 1 minute on average. So, okay, for us to detect those attacks, first we need to go over the information about each and every internet connections. So when I collected the data, I found, okay, there are about 83 features or 83 words for each internet connection. So which means that each person can only handle or read the information about 3 internet connections at every minute. Considering that we have around 200 internet connections every minute, which means that we will need around 67 workers to protect a single computer from attacks. Okay, at least 67. This is based on our consideration that those workers never relax. They just work 7 days, 24 hours. Okay, which is unrealistic. And next, to make it even more difficult, it is that, okay, first let's recall the red figure. The attacks and the benign behaviors look like each other very much. So when we hire people to work for the security, we definitely need to find some intelligent people, some people with great knowledge in cybersecurity. So like this guy in the movie. So let's look at some other numbers. These are the salary that we need to pay for a cybersecurity expert. So suppose that we hire an ordinary cybersecurity worker in the 3rd level, and we pay each of them $200,000 annually. So with 67 workers, which is the minimum number of workers we need, we probably will end up with a cost of $13 million every year for a single computer. Can you do it? Can you afford it? At least I can't, okay? So this is why we have so many attacks, because it's so expensive to protect us from those attacks. So those companies or those big organizations, even they cannot afford it. How could afford it by ourselves, right? So how could we make it better? How could we protect us from those attacks? These are the hope, okay? So on the left-hand side, I show our brain, a human brain. So in terms of the computational speed, our human brain is able to conduct 3 times 10 to the power of 16 operations every second. It is so powerful. This is the reason why we are the leader in all the species, okay? We are the kind of like dominate the world. And on the right-hand side, it is the TPU, or Tensor Processing Unit, that was released by Google 2 years ago. Or, so you can take it as a GPU, Graphic Processing Unit, which is the graphic card in most computers. So nowadays, with the development of those hardwares, they can reach 1 times 10 to the power of 16 operations per second, which means that they are pretty comparable in terms of computational power. They're pretty comparable with our human brain, okay? So which is a pretty good news for us. And the best thing with this hardware is that it's much cheaper than a human brain. So it only costs around 7,000 to 15,000 for each of this hardware, okay? So now we have some hardware which has the same kind of like ability as a human brain. And next, let's look at the structure of our human brain, okay? So our human brain consists of billions of nerve cells, which are the nodes over there, which are connected by synapses. So we can take each nerve cell as a computer, or yes, as a computer, and they are connected by the synapses, which are like our network cables. So this is the way for us to process information and learn from experience, learn from the real world, okay? So these are the structure of our brain. And next, this is how we organize the computational power inside those hardwares. We create a deep neural network, which means here, in this neural network, we have multiple layers of neurons. Each neuron is just a node. We have multiple neurons multi-layers of neurons that are connected by some connections. So we design such structure to let our hardware behave like our human brain. Okay, so this is the organization. And next, I'm going to show two really beautiful theorems, even though they're pretty hard to understand. The first theorem says, okay, so if we have a neural network if we are given sufficiently large number of neurons, we can use our neural network to learn and it will be able to approximate any function we want. It means that we can basically use a deep neural network to do anything we want, given that we have sufficiently large number of neurons. And the next theorem here explains why we need deep structure. Because so if we're given the same amount of neurons, if we arrange them in different layers, where each layer consists of only a small portion of the neurons, then the representation power of that network is much greater than just have a flat layer of a lot of neurons. Okay, so this is just explains if we have a deeper structure in the neural network, it's like a better way to organize it and to represent functions. So with these two theorems, this is my work, or the work that are conducted by most researchers in cybersecurity. We are going to feed the data we collected, even though they are pretty hard, to the hardware. Let it learn 24 hours every day and 7 days per week. So we let it, our unit, our processing unit, or our artificial human brain learn from the data continuously. And from my home country, there is a famous saying that if you have a very hard article to understand, you should read it a couple, say 100 of times or thousands of times, and finally you will understand it. You will understand it thoroughly, understand every piece of information inside that article. So same thing, we just let our artificial human brain learn from the data a lot of times, without any stop. And then finally, we are going to have this. We're going to have the Albert Einstein in cybersecurity to help us detect attacks from those benign internet connections. And let's consider the cost again. Let's do some numbers again. So the total cost now is just a 10,000 first-time investment on the hardware, plus around $700 of electrical bills every year. So that number is based on the current PSEG electricity rate in New Jersey. Okay, so which is much better, and this is pretty much affordable by those organizations. So now we have a very budget-wise and clever and powerful solution for cybersecurity. We are able to detect attacks with pretty powerful human brain, artificial human brain. Okay, so that is my presentation. Thank you.